Hello friends, welcome back to What Cat Reads. For those who don't know me, I'm Kat. I'm a wife, a homeschool mom, and an avid reader. We have reached the end of July. Wrong month. We have reached the end of August. And I am going to do my best to get through this video. I ended up contracting COVID at the end of the month, and it has kicked my butt. So this will probably be somewhat short and sweet. Alright, so first off, to kind of go through some of my stats. So for this month, for the month of August, I read 10 books. I have no idea how many pages that is right now. I'll look just a second. So 10 books. 4 of those were fantasy. 1 was a sci-fi. 1 was a thriller. 2 were contemporary or romances. 1 was a historical fiction. 1 was a horror. Of those, 8 of them were adult books. 2 were young adult. I physically read 6 of those. 1 was audio and 3 were digital. For page numbers, I read a total, of 3,947 pages this month. And when you break that down, that's 2 books that were less than 300 pages, 2 books that were over 500 pages, and then the remaining 6 were between 300 and 499 pages. Not my best month, but not my worst either. I'm gonna take it with the craziness that we had. And I guess I will start with my ebooks. Of those 3 ebooks, the first one I read was Nettle and Bone. This one was part of the Late Night Cruise book of the month pick that we kind of read together and we discuss our feelings a little bit, not really getting into the nitty-gritty so much, just kind of overall thoughts. This one was a fantasy. I'm trying to remember back, and in it, we are, here, hold on, because I have completely gone blank. Alright, so, we're following a character named Mara, and she is a princess. She's the 3rd born princess. She's watched her older sisters, be put in a marriage with an abusive prince, and it has not ended well. And so she decides that she is going to kill said prince. And to do this, she has to go on these quests. And those aren't really the big part of it. Like, if you read the synopsis, you think it's going to be all about collecting these 3 items in these quests, and it's not really. Like, I think we were done with the quests by 25% of the book. Overall, my thoughts were, it wasn't a bad read, but at the same time, it wasn't I guess it's because of how it was presented. It just fell flat for me. I really thought the quests would be more, and then the ending of the book was so lackluster. I mean, like, everything that goes on through it, you're just left thinking, or at least I was left thinking, this could have been so much more. The premise was great, but some of the execution just, like I said, fell flat. I probably would give this a 3 stars because it fell flat, but there are those who are just starting out in fantasy that I would probably say go for it. But as much Sanderson and Moss and some of these that really spend huge chunks of their lives writing these books and just really going into the world building and epic fantasy type writing, this one just wasn't there for me. Again, not a bad read. It was enjoyable. But like many people in our Discord group that read it, we felt that the best characters were the chicken and the dog. Yeah, it was definitely an interesting one. And if you're looking for a quick standalone fantasy, this one probably is what you're looking for. And it does deliver that fantasy. It is a quick read. But I feel like it could have done so much more with it. Due to a lot of stuff that was going on during the month, I tried to stick mostly with physical books. So the next digital book that I read was The Fine Line. I read that toward the end of the month. This one was also a book club pick, and this one was for the Cliterature Book Club. And this one was a lot of fun. The premise is you have a billionaire whose grandfather dies and leaves him the company, but with caveats. He has to complete a new project, or not complete the project. He has to present a project at the end of 6 months, and it has to be something that will improve on the company's weaknesses. And the company is a amusement park, kind of think Disneyland. Or at least that's what I thought the entire time I was watching it or reading it. So you have this billionaire trying to improve, and one of the workers, one of the employees, turns out she had met with the original owner, the grandfather, and built a somewhat working relationship with him. And he came along and kind of tried to encourage her to do things that would help her to become what they call a creator. This is those who create the rides and the experiences that are on the amusement grounds. Well, she ends up becoming a creator under the inheriting billionaire, and there is an instant attraction, and it kind of does like romances and smut books do, where it'll start, there's attraction, it continues from there. It is a grumpy, what is it they call it? Grumpy sunshine trope. But it was a lot of fun. Was it super hot? No. It probably, I'd put it as a too chilly, spicy rating. But it had so much plot. It was not written for the smut scenes alone. I enjoyed it. Will I continue this series? I don't know. I didn't have really any connection with the brothers in it when I read the first one. And so we'll see how it goes. And I just realized, I think I've been calling it The Fine Line, and I think it's The Fine Print. Yes, it's The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. And so it's got the, like contracts and stuff. Kind of leaning on that idea. A lot of fun. There is some special needs representation in it. There is some mental health representation in it. And I felt that overall the book was just really well written. It was one of those where it's the romance and you're in it more for the story than the spicy scenes. So, yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. I would probably give it 4.5 to 5 stars. It was just a good time and well written. I don't know what else to say on that one. Next ebook that I read, I wrapped out August with it, was Crush. This is the second book in Tracy Wolf's Crave series. This one follows Grace, and I don't want to give away too much. Grace is a human in a paranormal school. And things happen in Crave, leading to our events in Crush, where Grace has amnesia over the last 4 months. And there were common YA fantasy things going on that I expected, like the 3-way triangle. Okay, we have that in just about every YA fantasy. You have our main character and there are 2 people fighting after her. This one took a different approach with that. As I was reading, pieces shifted. And the end result left that feeling of, I knew this was coming, but I didn't want this to happen. Yeah. My feelings on this one compared to the first one, I think I enjoyed this one more. I know we always hear about the middle book slump or second book slump. um, for authors in series or the second book, because it's so much building to the next book that it tends to fall flat. I feel that Crave suffered from that more than Crush. Crave was a lot of the world building to lead to the events going on that have to happen in Crush. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. Do I wish that some things that happened didn't? Yes. Did I see them coming with a flashing neon sign? Also, yes. Was I hoping that that flashing neon sign was wrong? Yes. So this month I'm going to be reading Covet. After finishing book 2, I think I know where the third book is going, but we'll just have to see on how this is gonna go. So I am looking forward to Covet, reading it in September, and I'm just gonna power through some of there's a lot of teenage angst in them. Part of that is what makes it fun, but I'm also getting ready to go deal with teenagers for school. I only have one teenage class, so it won't be as bad, but we shall see how I feel about Covet as we go on. This is a series that I could see myself continuing and enjoying, or I could see myself DNFing the series. So, we'll see what happens. The next book that I read in August also was on my July TBR, and that was The Shadow House by Anne Downs. This is a thriller, so I'm not going to really go too much into what happens, because the synopsis in the front panel really does a good job of not fully giving you what's going on. A single mom of 2 children moves to this compound. It's a group of people who are trying to trying to get away from the big cities, get away from the big life thinking. They have, it's almost utopia-esque. They're wanting to live off of the land and getting to come into this community and stay in this community is difficult. You kind of sign a lease and you get to stay for, I think it's 3 months. And then after that, you have to be picked by someone who lives there to build a community or a group of houses together, kind of like on the street. And as you're reading, you're finding out that this land has some history. And as the reader, you get a dual timeline. So you're seeing what is happening with our main character. You're also seeing what's happening in the history that leads to this group getting this land. This book was a good read. I enjoyed it. It did not stick with me though. Like, I had to flip through the book for a minute to kind of trigger what happened. I do remember enjoying reading it though. And the twists in the book were great. So I did enjoy it. Honestly, it didn't stick with me though, so I'd probably only give it 4 stars. Just because there's once you close the once you solve the puzzle and close the book, you're not left thinking and dwelling on it. And it did not leave a very lasting impact on me, but it was a good read. So there's that. The next book I read in the month was November 9 by Colleen Hoover. This one is a girl is getting ready to move to New York. And I say girl, she's an adult. Is getting ready to move to New York to spread her wings, essentially. And her father is a jerk about it. And overhearing this, a gentleman kind of steps in and pretends to be her boyfriend. And they decide to part ways, but come back together on November 9th for the next 5 years. Because of a promise that she made to her mom, that Fallon makes to her mom, to not fall in love and get married and all of that until she's 25. And this is like her protection against that. So then when they come together each year, you only get, as the reader, you only get that day. And the things that happen in this book are very interesting. They both really encourage the other to live a normal life throughout the year. And I don't even know where my brain was going with that. But this one, just as they're working together to encourage each other to live a better life, even though their contact is only that one day, it's a ride. I have a lot of problems with the twist that happens in it. And it's kind of one of those that it leaves you thinking a little bit about your impact on others. It does end like most romances where it's all neatly tied up. They fall in love and I assume live happily ever after. But there's a lot to unpack in this, and how their relationship goes through these 5 years. Yeah, it was quite interesting. It is definitely a Colleen Hoover book, in that there are those big twists. There's a lot of stuff in it that you're like, you're gonna need therapy for a while. Not the reader, the characters in the book. But yeah, it was a good one. I am never disappointed with Colleen Hoover's ways to challenge your thinking. But it's a quick read and a lot of fun. And just overall enjoyable. The next book I read during the month was The Final Girl Support Group. This one, we know the horror movie trope where you're left with the final girl standing. And this book takes that idea and puts all these girls together in a support group. But then characters start disappearing. As far as this one, I counted as horror because that's what the author is, a horror writer. But it wasn't the gross or psychological horror that I avoid. There are some parts that are gory, but it's not the nasty, icky factor in it as much. I enjoyed it, and it kind of made me want to sit and watch a bunch of horror movies, especially those 80s horror movies that it talks about in here. And just a lot of fun. Grady Hendrix. I know a lot of people struggled with this one, or will enjoy one of his but not others. I read the Southern Book Club Guides to Slaying Vampires, and now this one. I've enjoyed both, and I am looking forward to seeing what else of his books that I will enjoy. So this month, I don't think I had mentioned it in the beginning of August, because I don't think I didn't know about it yet. I found out about it just before the live talk. But one of the groups, Sarah's Shelves, has started a group, and we are rereading the Twilight books. And I started this one I did do on audio. I started the audio the night before the live discussion on YouTube, and didn't get as far as I wanted before the discussion. I think I got maybe 25% in, which honestly wasn't a huge problem, because I've read the book 9 million times before. So during the live talk, or the live discussion, a comment was made about how often in the book Edward Cullen chuckles, giggles, smirks, and is overall very jovial, which we don't get in Robert Patrickson's portrayal of Edward, which is fine for the movies. There are some parts that are going to be left out, but from that point on, as I listened to the audiobook, now the audiobook is not gold, okay? There are lots of understandable complaints about the audiobook. But listening to the narrator narrate the book, the chuckles and the giggles and smirks and overall jovialness of Edward Cullen really became evident. Some of this could be because I was alerted to the fact that, like, 38 times in the book, Edward chuckles. Sorry. But in this, it reminded me of the fact that, and I mean, it's one that we all know, books and movies are different, but it really highlighted it in this case. And I just overall had so much fun with it. And one of the, other big differences that we see, at least in this first book, is the difference in Charlie. Movie Charlie versus book Charlie. Totally different characters. And so it was a lot of fun because I'll watch the movies, 2 hours of my time. Whatever. I put it on the background. I do other stuff, clean the house, whatever. But there's so much depth of some of the characters that is missed or gained because of just doing the movies. So if you've only done the movies, I really recommend that you grab the books and read through them, and you get a slightly different perspective on some of these characters, and some of them are better in the book, some are better in the movie. So I'll let you decide on those. So the next book I read, I actually don't have in my possession right now. When I had to fly out to my parents' house to help take care of some stuff going on there, I read The Cat Who Saved Books. This book, it's Japanese in its original writing, and the translator did a great job of bringing it over to English. The one thing that I loved about this book, so let me back up. My husband picked this book up off of the shelf and showed it to me because it's a cat and saving books. Two of my, cats and books, my favorite things, right? But in the book, like there's so much more there, you could easily substitute in a dog or a pig or a flying unicorn for the cat. The part that I really enjoyed in it was through the book and this cat having this mission to save books. You are introduced into different kinds of readers, and the explanations of some of these readers was a lot of fun, and just kind of checking myself and making sure that I'm not falling into some of these pitfalls that as readers we get into, and robbing myself of the joy of reading. It was a lot of fun, and I really, really enjoyed it. If you can find it at your library or whatever, it's like 198 pages. Really quick read, and just very enjoyable. I would definitely recommend it to many, and actually that's part of the reason I don't have it, is I recommended it to my sister. who she's not really a cat person, mainly because she's allergic. But I could see there being parts in there that she would enjoy, like those descriptions of different types of readers. The last physical book I have that I read during the month of August is Upgrade. This one is a sci-fi thriller, and in it we're in the future and we have figured out how to genetically modify everything. But with genetically modifying some things, there were some very ugly side effects. That one being that it led to the dying off of a huge amount of crops, and people were starving to death. And so, we kind of have these very common dystopian type tropes. But because of all of that, genetically modifying has been severely limited and outlawed. Only a very small group of people can do it under very specific guidelines. And in this, we have a gentleman whose job is to tamp down on these geneticists who are continuing to work outside the law. He's like FBI for the Genetic Protection Act or something. It's something like that. Genetic Protection Agency, I think. It's GPA. That's all I remember. But in this, he goes on a raid and ends up being injected with a virus that genetically alters him. And it's an interesting premise. So, like, the first 25% of the book is him getting infected and moving through to understanding what changes are happening in him and all of this. Around the 25% mark, he finds out that something that he thought was true is not true. So for the next 25% of the book, from 25 to 50%, he's like searching for one person. And then the last half of the book, he's searching for another person. The whole time of this book, I was confused of where this book was going. I have finished the book and am mostly confused of what the book was trying to portray. This was not a favorite read during the month of August. There were some thought-provoking things, and I don't want to say I didn't enjoy parts of it, because I did. There were parts in it. There was things that kept me reading. But this was not really a book for me. I don't even really know how to describe it. I know when I finished, I went to my sister because I had told her she might be interested in it. I went, so you have to read the whole book for the last paragraph. Because it's kind of almost like a warning type book. Be careful what you do because of the consequences. Yeah, I'm just kind of left with that one. There were thought-provoking things. There are a group of people out there who probably read this and fully enjoyed every moment of it. I had a lot where I was just left confused or was just along for the ride. I don't even know beyond that. It was a decent book. I will give it that. It's well written. But if you read it, you might be left the entire time going, where is the author going with this? So, I would just say read that one with going in knowing that what you're presented with as the premise isn't fully the premise. And that's what I read during the month of August. 10 books, almost 4,000 pages. Not a horrible month. Not my best, but not a horrible month. I'm working on catching up on my genre blanket with being out of town and then getting COVID the last 2 weeks of August and first week of September, or first part of September, has really kind of limited me in what I could do. I didn't want to get germs all over my blanket that I work on over and over. And since my husband and daughter weren't with me when I went out to my parents, they missed the not having symptoms period when you're contagious. And so I came home and locked myself in my office. So that's kind of our month. I will do the genre blanket update soon and try to get that where you guys can see it. Alright. Let me know how your August went. This has been a little rambly and a little spacey, but if you've made it this far, I appreciate you hanging around. So leave me a comment of how your August went. Like and subscribe. I'll see you soon.